He recognized the faces on the screen. His chief financial officer was there. Other senior employees were there. The meeting looked private, urgent, and completely real. By the time it ended, a finance worker had authorized transfers worth about $25 million. There was only one problem. Every familiar person in that video conference was fake. This was not a movie, and it was not a theoretical warning about the future of artificial intelligence. It happened in Hong Kong in early 2024, inside the local office of Arup, a global engineering company headquartered in the United Kingdom. The case became one of the clearest demonstrations that a company can protect its computers and still lose millions when criminals learn how to imitate human trust. The operation began with something ordinary, a phishing email. A member of the finance team received a message that appeared to come from the chief financial officer at the company's British headquarters. The message referred to confidential transactions and invited the employee to join a group video conference. Urgency and secrecy were built into the request from the beginning. Those two ingredients matter, because they can make a normal verification step feel like an obstacle instead of protection. At first, the employee reportedly had doubts. A strange request involving a secret transfer should create suspicion. But the video meeting appeared to answer those doubts. On the screen were people the employee recognized, the chief financial officer and other apparent colleagues. Their faces were familiar. Their voices sounded familiar. Their presence made the instruction feel legitimate. But the meeting was not live in the way the victim believed. Hong Kong authorities later said the conference had been fabricated from public video clips and voices downloaded from the internet. It was effectively a carefully staged recording. There was no genuine interaction with the executives being impersonated. Once the criminals had delivered their instructions, they ended the meeting under a pretext and continued communicating through instant messages. The employee then authorized transfers to 5 local bank accounts. The total loss was approximately 200 million Hong Kong dollars, equivalent at the time to roughly 25 million United States dollars. The size of the loss made the story extraordinary, but the method is what made it historic. The attackers did not need to break into a data center, defeat advanced encryption, or install ransomware across the company. They needed a convincing message, public footage of real executives, and a situation designed to discourage independent verification. The company was later identified as Arup, the engineering firm associated with major projects around the world. In a later interview, Arup's chief information officer, Rob Gregg, described the incident as technology-enhanced social engineering. He emphasized that company systems had not been compromised and client or employee data had not been affected. People had been deceived into believing they were carrying out genuine transactions. That distinction changes how we understand the attack. Traditional cybersecurity often focuses on machines, passwords, firewalls, malware, and network access. This fraud targeted perception. Human beings use faces and voices as shortcuts for identity. A familiar executive on a screen feels more trustworthy than an unfamiliar email address. The criminals used artificial intelligence to attack that shortcut. Deepfake technology did not invent impersonation. Criminals have pretended to be bosses, relatives, bank employees, and public officials for generations. What changed was the amount of evidence they could manufacture. An urgent email might create doubt. An urgent email followed by a familiar voice is stronger. Add several recognizable faces inside what appears to be a private company meeting, and the victim is no longer evaluating one suspicious message. The victim is evaluating an entire artificial reality. The attack also exploited information that modern companies publish voluntarily. Executive interviews, conference appearances, recruitment videos, webinars, social media posts, and earnings presentations can provide hours of clean audio and video. None of that material is secret. But when combined with accessible generation tools, public visibility can become raw material for impersonation. After the incident, Greg experimented with creating a deepfake of himself. He said that a rough real-time version took him around 45 minutes using open-source software. It was not perfect, but perfection is not always required. A compressed video call already contains low resolution, delays, imperfect lighting, and audio artifacts. The weaknesses of the communication platform can hide the weaknesses of the fake. The Hong Kong case was not the end of this technique. In March 2025, authorities in Singapore and Hong Kong responded to another business impersonation case involving a fake video conference with a company's chief executive. In that incident, police managed to trace and withhold more than $499,000. The repetition matters. The $25 million loss was not an isolated magic trick. It was a preview of a reusable fraud model. So how can a company defend itself when seeing and hearing are no longer enough? The answer is not to ask every employee to become a deepfake detective. Visual defects can disappear as the technology improves. Protection has to come from process. First, sensitive transfers should require verification through a separate channel. If instructions arrive through a video meeting, confirmation should happen through a known phone number or an internal approval system, not through contact details supplied during the suspicious conversation. Second, large or unusual payments should require more than one independent approval. Third, urgency and secrecy should increase scrutiny instead of reducing it. A request to bypass normal controls is itself part of the threat. Hong Kong authorities also recommend testing the conversation, requesting unexpected movements on camera, and calling the person directly when a video or audio message asks for money. Organizations need rehearsed incident responses so employees know exactly what to do when identity becomes uncertain. The goal is not to identify every technical artifact. The goal is to make one convincing fake insufficient to move real money. The most important lesson from the Arup case is uncomfortable. The attackers did not prove that artificial intelligence can perfectly copy a human being. They proved that it can copy enough of the signals we use to trust one. A face is no longer proof. A voice is no longer proof. Even a room full of familiar colleagues may no longer be proof. For business leaders, this changes the meaning of identity verification. A video call can confirm that someone controls a camera and microphone, but it no longer necessarily proves who that person is. Companies need payment controls that survive a perfect impersonation, verified callbacks, independent approvers, transaction limits, and a culture where an employee can pause an executive request without punishment. Technology may help detect synthetic media, but detection will remain a contest between attackers and defenders. Process is different. A good process can assume the face and voice are convincing and still prevent the money from moving. That is the durable lesson from Hong Kong. $25 million disappeared because a video conference looked real. The next defense is not simply better software. It is a business process designed for a world in which reality itself can be imitated.